Okay. Sorry about that. But welcome to a new episode of Transformed and Renewed. Listen, if this is your first time joining us or you are a first time visitor, I want you to do something for me if you don't mind. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Whether you're on your phone, tablet, desktop, make sure you do that right now because this way you can stay up to date with the latest content that we will be sharing with you. And if you are returning, welcome to a new episode. We're going to get into it. We have been talking about for the past, I want to say last week, we started talking about high blood pressure. And, we talked a little bit about what is high blood pressure. Pretty much when your arteries are filled with blood for an extensive period of time, and that can lead to hypertension. Hypertension is not good. It's pretty much when you have an elevated blood flow. So this is pretty much where the blood has filled your arteries and is pumping through your body at a faster than normal rate. So many times, if you've ever gone to the doctor or you had your primary health care physician do a blood or take your blood pressure, it could have been a lab assistant or the doctor's assistant that would get your blood pressure. And if that number, I want to say it was 120 over 80. If it was higher than that number, then that is not a good sign because that is an indication that you have elevated blood pressure, which can lead to some health issues if that is not maintained. But today we are going to be talking about your heart disease. How do we prevent heart disease as well as maintain? And when we talk about maintain, what I am referring to is what are some of the foods that we can actually eat that helps to support heart just good heart health, and what are some of those foods that are not going to be the best. So these are going to pretty much slow down good progress. So as we talk about heart disease, I figured that this was appropriate since this is related to February. And when we really think about it, a lot of times we don't think that heart disease is a big issue or is talked about a lot, but we have to realize that this is still an issue. And this time I actually have some data because I want you to really see and understand this information. Because once you start to look at some of these numbers, it will become very clear to you that this is no joke. So, when it comes to heart disease, uh, and this is also related to cardiovascular disease, but according to at least the heart.org, and again, we'll jump into some statistics shortly, but heart disease actually accounts for or is one of the leading causes of death in the US. And this was actually based on, you know, data from 2020. And when we really think about heart disease, again, it's one of these topics. Even as I was doing research, one of the lines that I saw was that this is not a significant issue. But to me, I figured that it is since, there is data and it hasn't really been declining drastically. Some data shows that, from I want to say 2009 all the way up to 2018 or 2019, that was roughly about a 19% decrease in the onset of heart disease. However, it also showed that it rose almost about 1%. So when we really think about heart disease, again, it's not a joke and people still get it, whether you are older, 60s, or even younger. In these days, a lot of younger people are getting heart disease. So you probably heard of people who are getting strokes, having heart attacks. Yes, again, it's not a joke because a lot of people could be stressing, whether it's jobs, money, family, the economy, the fear of doom, anything you can think of, just not practicing good habits, good lifestyle, or healthy choices. A lot of these can just become a combination of attacks on your heart. Okay. And so that's one thing I want us to think about is what have you really been doing to take care of this heart? Okay. Because many times we can take it for granted. But again, let's dive into some data because I want you to again understand. So you don't really think I'm just making stuff up, because I really don't like to do that. But I do want you to see this, and this is actually from the AmericanHeart.org, and this is actually in kind of like a letterhead format once you look at it. And let's share this data. Share screen. Let's see. We'll share that. Uh, into a anyway. Okay, so let's see if we can make that. Okay. Anyway, so this is a fact sheet 2023. So I guess this was when they pretty much the AHA pretty much compiled data from 2020. And I want to point out some key points again. Sometimes when you see a lot of information, you may not really see like key points that pop out, but it was a few that popped out, and I really want to highlight. But in this one, they pretty much talk about the research, how it's funded. In this first paragraph, and pretty much a brief overview. We want to get down to this data right here. So, this pretty much talks about in 2020 how pretty much cardiovascular disease accounted for just barely under a million deaths in the US. Now, we know that 2020 was a historic year and one that still will be remembered in terms of just the onslaught of deaths that occurred due to just health complications related to COVID-19. But one of the things that, again, pieces of data that stuck out to me was when you look at the different groups, and I know that in other pieces of data statistics, it kind of showed different groups of people. So you had African Americans who pretty much accounted for or made up the majority when it came to the risk or even deaths related to cardiovascular disease. After that, I want to say you had Caucasians, or it may have been Hispanics or Caucasians. Then you had Asians, and then you had Caucasians. So somewhere in that mix, it I think either Hispanics were after African Americans, and then you had Asians, and then you had Caucasians, or it may have been mixed up. So I have to go back and look at that. But at least in this data right here in 2017 shows that 59%, and I'm not sure what the total number was. It could have been somewhere in the hundred thousands. I don't know. But we do know that at least when they polled research, I know sometimes they show it at the bottom, but just assuming that it was at least over 1,000 or probably 10,000 people who were surveyed. 59%, okay, non-Hispanic Black females, okay, and then you had males that were basically 0.1% behind them, which is not much. So it's pretty much about the same percentage. 59% of both males and females had some form of cardiovascular disease. So just think about that. If a portion of the US was polled and data was collected about people who pretty much exhibited any symptoms or just had any previous history. It could have been genetics, it could have been family history, or it could have been in the past 3 years. But it shows that at least 59% between males and females, Black males and females, had some form of cardiovascular disease. And again, this showed that this was the highest prevalence, okay, when it comes to the category, race category. Now, y'all know me, I really don't care about breaking up groups, whether it's black or white. I kind of feel like we're the same people if we can speak the same language. But to make a point, it just showed that, Black people pretty much had the highest prevalence of cardiovascular disease. And I can tell you this from just my experience as, I grew up in the South. I kind of saw some things firsthand in terms of different factors that would contribute to CVD. Okay. And just even observing Caucasian individuals who are older and some of their habits, lifestyle habits, even nutrition, I started to notice just differences, at least from just traveling and really being around people, as well as having that opportunity to study people. Now, it wasn't something that I planned to do, but a lot of times when I go different places, it is just kind of ingrained in me to study people and some of their habits and what they do. And I can tell you, I can definitely pinpoint some of the factors and some of the things that we're going to talk about. It I am pretty much in alignment with what the research has shown in terms of causes for CVD. But let's keep it going. In 2020, it showed again that coronary heart disease was the leading cause at 41% of deaths in the United States. Okay, then you had strokes at 17%. Then you had other forms of CVD at 16%, about 17%. Then you had high blood pressure at about 13%. Heart failure. So this is pretty much your heart is just tapped out. You have put too much work on that heart of yours at about a little under 10%. And then diseases of the arteries. So this is where the blood is flowing through your body. So going into your heart to the other parts of your body, whether it's to your organs, to your lungs, pumping in and out oxygen or blood flow. This is about 2.6%. Okay. And I want to kind of go back up to this, to the costs related to this, because most people, they don't really think about this, but I want to point this out to you because many people again don't think that heart disease is a big issue, but it's a big issue. Okay. And this when you think of the healthcare bills. So as healthcare is slowly increasing and the cost of insurance or health insurance is slowly increasing, that is kind of also letting you know that a lot of diseases are slowly increasing or they are not decreasing. And sometimes people may say, I wonder why. Well, I know there's probably another topic, and it may have to be a private topic because I don't want to get banned, but I'm gonna always tell you the truth. So when we look at this number, the direct and indirect costs just for cardiovascular diseases, 407 billion. Okay. So that's not million, that is billion. Okay. So just think about that 407, 407 billion. Okay. So you had basically about 250 billion in direct costs, and then you had 156 billion in lost productivity mortality. Okay. So it is very costly when people die, because you have to think about the funerals. You have to think about just any outstanding debts. So whether it was health insurance, so if a person had an outstanding balance, that is money still that has to be paid. Okay, and so this number has not been declining by any means. Okay, and let me see. So yeah, we go back up to this number. 128 million adults had some form of CVD between 2017 and 2020. That's a lot of people when you think about it. That is a lot of people at the end of the day. Now, granted, this is pulling in about 3 years worth of data, but still, that is a lot of people. Okay. Even if you broke that down to an average, you would roughly, I want to say, be at about 40, I want to say about 43 million a year, which is still a lot. Okay. You broke that down based on the months, you're probably at maybe about 3 million or 4 million probably 3.5 million a month. That is still a lot, okay, of people who have some form of CVD. So that's basically 3.5 million people who have CVD a month. That is a lot, okay? So again, as we kind of go down, it shows that CVD accounted for approximately 19 million global deaths in 2020. And again, we know that 2020 it was just a year where people just were fearing because of just hearing the constant news about more deaths, more the death toll has risen, the death toll is on the rise, and I'm sure you probably got tired of just hearing about that and just seeing people who were just dying before your eyes. And a lot of this was or a lot of the CVD is particularly just related towards a lot of things that can be preventable, such as your lifestyle. What are you eating? We're going to touch on that very shortly. But again, I just want you to look at this data, and this is actually available on the net. And I want you to again just look at this data because this is nothing that I can make up. But I just want you to really see that heart disease hasn't gone anywhere, and it's important that we really take account of what we are doing. Again, like I said earlier, it's the number one cause of death in the United States according to 2020 data. Now this is 2023, so they pretty much, I want to say, probably at the end of the year released this these statistics that they compiled. And so you kind of get an idea that heart disease, at least in the past couple of years, it was still known as the number one cause of death. And it seems like it still is in that top position. Okay. So let's see what was some other, let's see. So yeah, down here it kind of gets more into the demographics where it talks about how different places where they have the highest mortality rates, where it's either related to strokes, and sometimes when people have strokes, I want to say from some data it showed that you may typically have about 5 to 10 years of life left from your initial stroke. Now again, that I want to say is based on an average, assuming if you really start to change some things around, it can improve. But if nothing changes, then usually about 5 to 10 years could be less, again, just depending on lifestyle. But again, I just want you to at least see some of these numbers. And this was one that I thought was very interesting. For one of every 21 deaths in the US, a stroke was accounted for. So if that number was at 2,100, you had about 100 people, okay, 100 deaths essentially, okay, that were pretty much, uh, or out of 2,100 strokes, 100 of those resulted in death, okay. That is not fun at all, people. So I know a lot of this data is uh, can be slightly gloomy. It can be pretty depressing, but a lot of times we have to really understand some of this data in the reality in order to really take things seriously. Because again, it's not to say that hey, you can't enjoy life, but you got to do it with some discipline. Okay. And so I want to kind of get into, because again, I can go on and on about the statistics, and it pretty much is going to complement, what I've shown you in this in this brief fact sheet. But just to get you one last glimpse, and again, you can search this, searching the AHA 2023 statistics. And I'm sure if you pull up this title in the header, it will actually pull up this document. And again, you can download this and just save it for your own personal use, because this is going to be some good information, a good reminder that I feel can really help people and even help you to share it with someone that you know and say, hey, I was thinking about you. I know you had some health issues. Wanted you to look at this. Don't know if it's going to change anything, but hopefully you can see some correlation to this and some other data that is not lying. Okay. So, again, this is some good information, but I really want to get into some practicalities of how we can pretty much prevent heart disease, because I always like to show you pretty much the overview, giving you the information, okay, or the issue at hand. But I always like to kind of leave on a good note in terms of, okay, we can do some things. Okay. So I want to say the bad part is kind of over if you thought that was rough. So we're going to get into the good part. Okay. And hopefully you take something away from this. So, again, when it comes down to heart disease, as you've seen from this brief data that I've shown you, this was based on 2020. Haven't even gotten into 2021 up until last year. So it could be probably by the end of the year, a couple of months before we even see some data from the past 2 or 3 years. And based on that data, that's going to tell us a good bit. But based on what we know in 2020, and assuming that, you know what, if things are still the way they are, the way they were in 2020, if they are the same way as they are now and have been increasing, then we have some work to do. So, when it comes down to preventing heart disease, what do we do? How do we really do that? What should I eat and what should I avoid? Because again, a lot of people may say, well, I just can't eat, all of this healthy stuff. I just can't do that. That is not how I grew up. Okay. I just don't like it. I'm picky. Okay. I don't like it. And, with a lot of things, it just really takes small steps. And you also have to think about, again, your heart health. Do you really care about your heart? Do you really care about living long? And not only that, do you care about, let's say you were to live a long life, which I want to say a lot of people, at least within the past 10 years, it has shown that a lot of people are living longer. But the caveat to that is a lot of people are experience some type of suffering. Okay. So it could be it could be the latter 10 years that they are living, up until death, that they are experiencing health issues. Could be 15 years. But just think about it. You were to live long life, whether it's up to 90, Lord willing, 100. But those last 10, 15, 20 years, the only thing you could remember was, I just suffered so bad, and I just wish I never went through that. I'm sure you probably would if you had the opportunity. Someone said, "Hey, if you were to do this differently, would you take it?" If you knew that you wouldn't have had to experience so much pain, okay? And we all will experience pain eventually, but I mean pain that you can actually prevent based on some choices that you can make differently. Because again, I know a lot of people who are older and they are just functioning like they are 20 years old, 80, 90 years old, don't seem like they have a broken bone in their body. And if I were to ask you that, I'm sure you probably would say, you know what, I'll take you on that offer. I'll try to do some things a little differently. It'll be tough, but I'll try to do that. So, one of the things that I say that you can't do when it comes to preventing heart disease is, of course, drinking a lot of water. Excuse me. A lot of water can really help with just flushing your body. And this is, again, a very simple and effective way. Um, if you can get, glass bottle or just the purest type of water, that's always the best. But hey, if you can afford bottled water and that's the best you can do, hey, work with that. It is a start. Okay. That's all I like to look at. And I want you to, realize, hey, as long as you're starting somewhere, that is great because you can always, upgrade over time, as you have a better financial situation, depending on, uh, depending on your finances. So drinking a lot of water just helps flush a lot of toxins out your body. It also just helps to flush a lot, or helps to transport a lot of nutrients to the respective organs and sites in your body. And a person may say, well, I like to drink a lot of sodas, teas. You can drink teas. When it comes to teas, okay, different types. Sweet tea is not the same as herbal tea, okay? sweet tea, okay, is not the same as herbal tea. And what I mean by sweet tea is where the sugar has pretty much just taken over, okay? It's not the same as herbal tea. You take herbal tea without necessarily adding sugar, that's where you can get more of the benefits of the herbs. Okay. Sometimes it can be bitter. You get the teas that have a fruity note. So like mango type teas, peach teas, or even citrus type teas, lemon teas. These can also give you a fruity note. So they can give you that fruity note without the added sugar, but you can also enjoy the flavor of it. Okay. But again, getting at least a good amount of water in your body. 8 cups is typically recommended. If you can get more than that, as well as, if you are going to the bathroom often, that is going to be helpful. Another thing is fruits and veggies. Okay. This is the common duo. Okay. So vegetables are just prime when it comes to nutrition to the body. Okay. And most people don't know why. It's because vegetables just contain a lot of nutrients. You have different categories of vegetables. You have your non-starchy vegetables. So this is going to be, I want to say, like your greens. So you think about kale, spinach, bok choy, chard. When you think about just different types of greens, cabbage, these are going to be considered your non-starchy vegetables, but they also contain so many nutrients that can support anywhere from just your cell proliferation, just helping with your blood cell count, just even helping with your skin and so many other parts of your body that you don't even think about. But a lot of these vegetables just contain the nutrients, phytochemicals, which are amazing. We did a video on that a while ago. We'll do another one on that soon, just as a refresher. But they contain many benefits that just helps your body to function in the way that it should, even better. Okay. But again, you won't experience this if you're not eating a lot of these foods or even getting the benefits of them. Some people do the supplements, but it's not the same as getting the real deal whole food. Okay. Um, vegetables, you got sweet potatoes, you got squash, okra, you got eggplant, you got all of these types of vegetables. Okay, many types, in the vegetable list goes on and on. And so from that a you not only have food, but you also have a medical, okay, if you will, a medical food database when you get just a plethora of vegetables. So that's one thing I would say, is to really focus on those vegetables, fruits, vegetables, fruits. Typically, they are pretty much the same. They contain a lot of nutrients. Okay, vitamin C. You have vitamin C. You have potassium in some fruits like banana has potassium. Sweet potato has potassium as well. Vitamin C in strawberries, orange, of course, kiwis as well. I want to say mangoes have vitamin C as well. But these are just a few of the nutrients that you can get. It's many more. Sometimes you don't even see a lot of the full nutrient list on vegetables because because it's hard to really pull out. I mean, you could put all those on a bag, but it's just so much more than what a lot of manufacturers put on there. They could actually evaluate or do a lot of tests on every single nutrient, just like they do for the dietary supplements. Not sure why they don't do it, but I want you to trust me on this. When you get a piece of produce from the store, it is packed with a lot of nutrients that may not be listed on the container or the bag or whatever it came in. So that's something to keep in mind. Wrapping up shortly, but a few more foods that you want to focus on and some that you probably want to just stay away from. You can focus on the beans, legumes. These are just going to contain a lot of fiber, soluble fiber, because and insoluble fiber, because what happens is most people, when you eat food, we're going to touch on foods that you don't eat. Sometimes you may eat junk food. Probably want to stay away from that often. Okay. If you eat that often, fried foods, okay. Fried foods are just not good again for the heart. Okay. And it's nothing wrong with enjoying it every now and then. But again, you also have to do what is in the best interest of your body. Okay. Anything that is packed with sugar, anything that is pretty much loaded with refined oils, vegetable oils. Okay. Now, I want you to know there are different types of oils that you can eat, i.e., such as olive oil. You can typically get that whether it's cold pressed, unrefined, which is going to be better. So, in its whole state, in its when I say unfiltered, meaning that it hasn't been adulterated. And adulterated is pretty much when a food product has essentially been tampered with. So you want to just get it in its whole state because any type of adulteration is not good for you. And that can lead to, if you've heard of different outbreaks such as listeria, where, bacteria could have been related to just hygiene. We don't know that. But typically, based on previous news reports and once they release reports, usually goes back to, some form of hygiene or cross contamination. But when it comes down to a lot of these foods, back to the beans and the soluble fiber, this is just going to give you that feeling, or it'll help you with satiety. So this is the feeling of being full. And most of the times when you're eating a lot of food, you may say, "Well, man, I just ate this burger, but I don't know why I'm still I just ate a full like meal. I ate a burger, fries, I drunk, a soda, but I'm still hungry. And the reason why you're still hungry because you have not had any quality food in your body. But I can guarantee you, when you get quality food in your body, you will start to feel full and you don't have to feel guilty about it because that food that you ate, whether it was vegetables, beans, even rice, that is going to be properly digested in your body and it's also going to help clean your body. So again, this is known as clean fuel: vegetables, fruits, beans, whole grain rice, whole grain beans, or just beans that you can actually make. So the canned beans, like to avoid those unless they're low sodium. But usually I like to get the beans whether they're in the bag, soak them, rinse them off very good, cook them, because these are really going to give you some good cleanness in your body because again they contain soluble and insoluble fiber. Once you eat them, okay, you'll feel full. Okay. You also may have some gas. So I would recommend you, if you're around somebody, you may start to smell. Okay. So I'm not saying that if you eat beans, you're gonna be smelling like flowers. You probably be smelling like the opposite. So I would warn you, if you do eat about 2 bowls of beans, okay, that bathroom is going to be messed up for a while. But you can rest assured that once you do eat those beans, that your body's going to be clear, as well as like vegetables, but it's helping to clear out your digestive system, even your liver. And you have to really think about your different organs. When you take in a lot of food, it is affecting them. So once you get in that good fuel, it's going to help to clean them out. But like I said, with beans and whole grain rice, these are also going to help with just helping you to feel full, but it's also going to help you with better digestion. Okay. So if you have problems with constipation, you don't use the bathroom for 2 or 3 days at a time, that's an issue. Okay. You should be using the bathroom at least once a day, probably several times a day, because that kind of shows that you have good got digestion. Wrapping it up, when it comes to meats, I usually like to focus on lean meats. Okay. So for me, what I call lean is like 93% leanness or higher. Okay. Anything that's less than that is not good because then you're getting into a lot of fat. And usually with fats, I usually try to stray away from that. Sometimes people may incorporate it if they are working out or if you're, doing a lot of physical activity. That could work, but again, I just like to play it always safe is focusing on the leanness of meats. And usually when I drain, I usually like to drain the meat so that it doesn't have a lot of fat. That's just me. I know some people don't eat meats, they strictly just do whole vegetables, grains, vegetarian type lifestyle. You can do whatever. I'm not telling you what type of diet you should do, but what I am saying is this is the type of discipline that works for me. And even as I've done this, I do make changes with myself. So these are some of the things that you can do to, or some of the foods that you can eat. And like I said, some of the foods that you probably want to stay away from, you likely already know, especially, and this is one way you can tell what foods you probably should stay away from. And this is also going to be an easy exercise when you're watching the TV, okay? Whatever commercials you see the most often, okay, think about what types of foods they are showing, how they are prepared, how many of the same commercials do you see, okay, and then think about how many healthy commercials do you see. And if you see more commercials, whether it's for fast food in comparison to healthy foods, the more of those fast foods that you see, that kind of tells you your answer in terms of what you need to stay away from, as well as related categories. Okay. So this is going to be processed foods, foods that have a lot of ingredients in them. So when I say a lot of ingredients, so it'd be one thing if you had rice, flour, milk, black pepper, turmeric in a particular food item. To me, all of those items you can actually eat. But on the flip side, if you had a food product that had methyl, I want to say it's a methyl cellulose, you have sodium nitrate, you have sodium citrate, you have sodium phosphate, and these are actually three salts, three different types of um, sodium compounds that you could find in any given type of meat products or even dried or cured products. But if you have this as well as some other types of foods, whether it is just canola oil, excuse me, sunflower oil, uh, whether it is high fructose corn syrup, these would be then considered ultra processed foods. Excuse me. So on the flip side, you have foods that are going to be again in the whole state. You can eat rice in this whole state. Flour typically is in this whole state, but then you have herbs, spices. You may have milk. Okay, we know that's whole, but then all of these other ingredients, these are added. These are not necessarily going to be helpful for your body. Okay, these are usually going to be for the better intent of the food itself. But even then, you have to evaluate, okay, this is usually for the food, but what about the body? Okay. So again, I want you to think about that when it comes down to this in terms of what to eat and what to avoid, because a lot of this is going to be important for heart disease, how you can prevent that and how you don't have to become a victim of that. And again, these are just ways that you can do to prevent that. Of course, there are so many other factors, and we'll touch on those. But basically, based on nutrition, these are some of the things that you can be doing. Okay. So, I know this was a little longer than usual, but I wanted to really give you this information because, again, the data that we looked at is real deal. This is no joke. So, when we really think about this, we have some work to do. Okay. Every day. And if you enjoy this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you share it with somebody because, again, you never know who you can help. And again, your feedback actually helps us to keep growing. And we do have some exciting news. We are going to be one. I think I said that a few weeks ago, but we're going to be opening up our coaching sessions very soon. We just have some pieces of work that we have to finish up, but we are going to be opening that up soon to where people can actually sign up. So you can book a slot because they will fill up very quickly. And that is kind of just based on some of the feedback that we have been getting. So I'm letting you know while you're on, if you want to take advantage of that, make sure that you're tuning in throughout the month of February, because for the first few people that do take advantage of the signups, they would get a wonderful gift, okay, or at least I probably say a service benefit, so to speak. So make sure once we do set that up, I'm kind of giving you the pre warning about once it does come out, so that way you're not taking too much time. If you know that you say, "Hey, I really need a coach, really need someone to help me, to guide me," make sure you take advantage of that. We'll have the sign up link for you. Go through some documents to fill out, because we do like to kind of just make sure you are serious about this, and we'll get started on that. So this is just a pre-warning. Once we do come out with that promo, we'll definitely let you know. But once you do get it, you have the link. So it's kind of a race once you get that link. So that way you can take advantage of it. Obviously, you can still sign up. But again, the first few people, we have not identified the number, but the first few people will get a service benefit, the way I can put it right now. So again, make sure you sign up and subscribe, just to make sure that you do not miss those important updates once they are released. And until next time, hope that you have a great evening, and I will talk to you later.